Welcome to the Copeland Coaching Podcast, where it's all about turning your job search into a slam dunk. Your host is Angela Copeland.
Welcome to the Copeland Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Angela Copeland. Live on the phone with me today, I have MaryJo Fitzgerald in San Francisco, California. MaryJo is a public relations specialist at Glassdoor.com. Glassdoor is a jobs and recruiting marketplace that's changing how people search for jobs and how companies recruit top talent. Glassdoor combines free and anonymous reviews, ratings, and salary content with job listings to help ensure job seekers find the best jobs and address critical questions that come up during the job search, application, interview, and negotiation phases of employment. MaryJo, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, I mentioned before we got started that Glassdoor is one of my favorite websites. And, I did an interview in 2014 with Scott Dabrowski, and I'm looking forward to talking with you today so that we can kind of get an update on where things are in 2016.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I noticed recently on the Glassdoor blog that you talked about sort of 2016 New Year's resolutions, and one of the issues that came up was asking for a raise. And it's interesting because in the past month or so, I've had a number of people, both clients and listeners, contact me and ask me about how to do this. So I would love to get your feedback on, things that we should keep in mind when we're looking for a raise.
Yeah, sure. Everybody wants, a little bit more money or more benefits. So looking for a raise is something that people are going to be doing in 2016 and beyond. So, there's three key things to keep in mind when you are going to the negotiation table. The first one is to do your research. So you need to come in prepared, and you can use sites like Glassdoor to find out what sort of compensation you can expect. You can search for specific things like job title, location, the position or years of experience, and really nail down what salary others similar to you are making. And having that information in front of you when you go to the negotiation table is super helpful, and it shows your manager or employer that you have really done your due diligence and you're serious about getting a raise. Mm-hmm. The second thing that I would recommend is to come prepared with metrics. And I don't necessarily mean numbers. You don't need a number, although numbers do help. They speak to our bottom line business objectives. But come prepared with how you've performed against your goals, whether it's over the past few months or past year or however long it's been since you got a raise. How have you performed against what you're measured on? You can talk about maybe you started a new program or you began leading team members, or if you're in sales, you've brought in X amount of money for the company. Any way that you can highlight what you've accomplished and how it's impacted the company's bottom line, that shows your worth and shows your value. Mm-hmm. And the last one is, go ahead.
No, I think you're right about that because oftentimes, when we approach our boss and we ask, to make more money to do the exact same job, it's important to explain why we think we would deserve more money.
Yeah, and oftentimes companies have, review cycles, so that is a perfect time for you to go in with your metrics, with your research that you've done and say, since my last performance review, I have done X, Y, and Z, and I deserve a raise. Maybe you're also asking for a promotion. These two often go hand in hand. So I've performed above my job duties, and here's how. And because of that, I deserve not only a promotion, but additional compensation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The third one that I would say is be ready to negotiate. Oftentimes, you're already at the negotiation table, so you've taken that first step. However, sometimes, employers or your manager can't offer you more money, more base salary. But be ready to negotiate for things that you would take instead. So maybe you would be willing to accept more flexible hours or the ability to work from home. These things are not expensive for the employer and would impact your life greatly. So think about before you go in what you would accept instead of a pay raise.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really important. I recently spoke with someone who's very good at their job and is really overperforming, and they went into a discussion with their current manager and asked, or wanted to ask at least, I don't know if they ended up asking, but wanted to ask for a 50% raise. And, that's a lot. And my feedback was kind of like, well, I don't know if they'll really realistically be able to give that to you. And,
right.
The person said, well, but I deserve it. I'm really outperforming. And I said, I understand that you deserve it, but sometimes it's just not possible. So, you do need to be ready when you go in that you may get some pushback. And like you said, be prepared with some other options that might make you, feel good.
Exactly. A 50% raise is huge. I would be shocked to hear if that person, achieved what they were looking for. A typical raise would probably be anywhere from 2% to maybe even up to 12 or 15% if you're really stepping up. So go in. Oftentimes people go in and negotiate higher than what they really would be comfortable with, right? So when the employer then says, we can't offer you that, but we can offer you this, you're getting closer to something that you feel like you deserve and feel like you've worked towards. So yes, go in high, but 50% is really high.
Yeah, you definitely want to be taken seriously with your request. And I tend to think if you want a giant pay raise, the best way to do it is to switch companies. If you want to stay within your current company, you have to realize that your salary is going to be based on your current compensation. So you're going to be working up from that point forward versus, renegotiating from scratch.
That's true. And, that goes back to my first point of doing your research. You can often, show the employer or your manager what other companies are paying for your same job. And so you don't have to go to the company, get an offer, and then say, hey, in order to keep me, you need to pay me X amount. You have all that information at your fingertips with sites like Glassdoor. So you can say, company Y is paying their employees in the same position this.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I deserve a raise, or, be willing to walk out if they can't give it.
Right. And it was really helpful, though, the number that you shared, that 2% to 12% is what we should really be expecting for an internal promotion or raise. Absolutely. Well, it's interesting, in 2016, as you know, something like 45% of people are planning to look for a new job. I know Glassdoor did a survey and found that. And you also recently featured 25 of the best jobs in America. So I was wondering if you could kind of walk us through what are some of those jobs, like where should we be looking for employment in terms of type of job?
Yeah, absolutely. So you hit it on the head. 45%, almost half of people are going to be planning to look for a new job in 2016. That's a lot of people. So Glassdoor wanted to compile a list of the best jobs that you can find in America, and we base this on 3 key factors. 2 of the biggest things that job seekers consider before accepting a job are salary and career opportunities. Additionally, we wanted to focus on jobs that are in high demand so that, you can actually get these jobs. So that's what the report is based on: earning potential, career opportunities rating, and number of job openings. So the number 1 job in America for 2016 is data scientist. Perhaps no surprise here, this has seemingly been the buzzword over the last year or so. This is a job that has really high salary, great career opportunities, and tons of open jobs. The other thing that's unique about this one, and a lot of jobs in the tech industry, is that it spans across all industries. So every industry from healthcare to retail, is looking for data scientists to help them understand and make business decisions. So this is a job that, does take some skill, some, training, and often you need a degree. But, it's something to consider for new grads or people switching careers.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a very hot job this year.
Oh, that's great.
Some of the other trends beyond the tech industry, there's probably no surprises. There's a heavy concentration of jobs within the tech industry on this list. So there's anything from data scientist, mobile developer, product manager, and as I mentioned before, companies across all industries are hiring for these positions.
Mm-hmm.
We also on this list see 3 jobs in the finance industry. So tax manager at number 2, audit manager at number 10, and finance manager at number 16. Both of these industries, the tech industry and the finance industry, have seen tremendous growth over the past few years. And this is why, there's such a high demand for hire and compensation for employees in these positions.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, tax manager might not be the flashiest title, but the high salary, $108,000, it really showcases the tax manager's niche skill set. And there are over 1,500 open jobs in the country right now for this position.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And Glassdoor, by the way, does also feature those open jobs on your website. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. Glassdoor is unique in that we pair open job listings with company information. And so when you're searching for a job, you are able to not only, find that job, apply for that job, but also find out information about what it's like to work at that company, what you can earn, what the interview process is like, what kind of questions you might get asked in the interview process, and even what benefits might be offered at this company. So that's really the key differentiator here with Glassdoor.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so of those 25 best jobs in America, were they almost all, tech or sort of finance, CPA type of positions, or was there anything kind of outside of those 2 areas?
There definitely were some unique or interesting jobs on this report. One of them is construction superintendent. So this is kind of the person that runs the day-to-day operations on a construction site. So this is not something many people would expect to see, but it does have, again, high pay and a lot of demand in the construction industry.
So do you think that's because as the economy is doing better, we're starting to build again and we need people to come in and lead the charge with these new projects? I mean, where does that really kind of come from?
Yeah, absolutely. The construction industry is one that got hit really hard in the Great Recession, and things are bouncing back. The economy is better than it has been in generations. We have a below 5% unemployment rate, which we haven't seen since 2008. It's at 4.9%, and more jobs are being added month over month to the economy. So yes, definitely, this is one where we're seeing a bounce back.
That's great. Well, another thing that's changing in 2016 is really how we look for jobs. And you kind of alluded to it before, but one of the things the job seekers are doing is they're actually doing more research. And so given that, Glassdoor has so much research and data available, what kind of research do you recommend that we do when we're looking for a new job?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is a trend that we plan to see in 2016, but this is something that consumers are already doing. Think about yourself going to a restaurant. You look for reviews about that restaurant on Yelp or other sites, or buying anything on Amazon. Before Glassdoor, when you were trying to buy a new TV, you read more about that TV and what it was going to be like than you knew about what job you were going to take and what that job was going to be like. Mm-hmm. So, with sites like Glassdoor that offer this information, we recommend job seekers really, really do their research before the interview, before even applying, and to find out company culture, to find out what they could earn. Is this right for them? And then once they get past, once they get into the candidate flow, what that interview process is going to be like, because that's going to help you get hired. And all this information is available on Glassdoor. The other thing that I would just mention is that we find that more than 3 in 4 people say that they value reviews and ratings from employees at a company when making a job decision. And so job seekers want this information. They're hungry for this information, but they want it from employees and the employer. And that really helps them round out the job choices that they're making. So one thing that Glassdoor does offer as well is the employer side of things. So similarly to how you would research a company's career stage on their website, or check out their Twitter handle, or read about them online, you can go to Glassdoor and find the perspective from the employer as well about why you should work there. So it really pairs together employee insights with employer insights.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that you mentioned I think is really interesting is how you can research the interview process. And I know Glassdoor actually participates in its own site. So you guys have information on your site about how to apply for a job at Glassdoor. And one thing I noticed when I was looking at it some time ago was that it looked like consistently at the end of the process to get hired, you often are asked to do a presentation about yourself. Mm-hmm. And I saw that as consistent feedback from all the people who had interviewed at Glassdoor. Did you, in your case, did you find that did that happen to you?
Oh, good question. So at Glassdoor, every team, and as we grow, we're growing a lot. We are now 600 employees worldwide. So that's employees in our Mill Valley headquarters just outside San Francisco. That's employees in London, Dublin, and Chicago. And, every team is different. So those interview reviews, you'll probably see some differences across, based on job titles. So people interviewing for a data science role are going to have a different interview experience at Glassdoor than people interviewing for a sales role. Mm-hmm. So some are required to do a presentation and some aren't. My interview process was interesting, actually. I did come in prepared with a full list, kind of similar to a brainstorm. So I guess that part of it was presentation-like. I talked a little bit about what I thought the program could do to improve and how my skills specifically would lend themselves to making that happen. So, the interview process for anybody is something that there's not a lot of information out there, and so using the reviews on Glassdoor can really help you understand what you're getting yourself into, and help you really come ready and just nail the interview.
No, absolutely. Interviews can be so different, both for the type of position and the type of company. I've had interviews where I've had to do math problems or do IQ tests. I had an interview once where I was given a dry erase marker and a whiteboard, and the person said, "I'm leaving. I'll be back in 5 minutes, and you'll sell yourself to me." So,
okay,
yeah. The more that you can,
hard.
Yeah.
One piece of research that we did recently, so I work a lot with our Glassdoor economic research team, including our chief economist, Andrew Chamberlain. And one interesting study that he's done recently is looking at interview duration, how long the interview process is taking. Mm-hmm. And one thing that he found was that it is taking longer than ever. It's an average of 22, almost 23 days from start to finish. And that is up almost double from 5 years ago. So, you look at things like group presentations or, writing out how to spell on a whiteboard or things like this. These are all adding to the length of the interview process. sometimes that's a good thing because as employers, you're scanning for the right candidates, you're finding the right person, but it sometimes can be a turnoff for job seekers, those candidates that are coming in the door, because they want a job now. That's why they're applying. So it's really a delicate balance that employers need to pay attention to.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because one of the absolute number one complaints that I hear from job seekers is how long it's taking, and it makes them so upset, because oftentimes if you're looking for a job now, you haven't job searched in like 5 years because you've been at a job. So you mentioning that it's pretty much, did you say doubled in the last 5 years? Yeah, I mean, that's really helpful in terms of setting expectations of how long we should expect the job search process to take once we've actually started, because that doesn't even count probably the time to apply. I would assume the 22 days is once you've actually started a conversation with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's taking longer than ever. And like I said, some of this is good things. It's employers being more careful about who they're hiring, who they're picking, and it's helping them get more satisfied employees for longer. It's helping them retain those employees. And you, as the employee, you're going to be more satisfied in a job where the expectations were correctly set during the interview process. You don't interview and then get the job, and then you're like, wait, this is nothing like what they told me it was going to be like during my interview. So it's really helping to, adding these screens and adding presentations and Skype calls and all of this stuff is really helping. But like you said, it really needs to be set from the employer, the expectations of how long the process is going to take.
Yeah, that's often. I actually gave a presentation last year to a group of employers who were frustrated at how hard it is to get good candidates to come and work for them. And they wanted sort of an insider perspective on what annoys job seekers. And the number one piece of feedback I gave them was, communicate more about expectations about this process, because, the person puts in so much time and they sneak out of work to come and talk to you, and you just kind of leave them hanging. And when you decide not to pick them, sometimes you don't even send them an email and let them know. You just walk away. And so I think setting those expectations is really important in terms of maintaining a positive relationship between the employer and the job seeker.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done surveys where employees are satisfied longer when expectations are set correctly in an interview. Mm-hmm. There's a direct connection there.
Yeah, and people can be patient if they know they need to be patient.
Yes. Yes.
So another thing that's really changing, and I've seen it in the past couple of years, is that perks, like different kinds of benefits, really seem to matter more. And I noticed on, I believe it was on the Glassdoor site, that it said 5 in 7 people, or 57% of people, are reporting that benefits are actually among their top considerations. So I'm curious, can you share with us a little bit about what are some of the new benefits that companies are offering that they weren't offering before? And is there anything that we can do to negotiate, for better benefits?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, you hit it right on the head. More people are reporting, majority of people are reporting that benefits and perks are their top considerations before accepting a job. This is a signal for the job market as a whole, to signal for employers to say, hey, we've got a total compensation pie that we can offer. Part of that includes base pay, but part of that includes benefits and perks, and we need to be paying attention to the benefits and perks part of that because job seekers and employees want it. It's also a signal on the employee side to be asking for these things. Here in the U.S., the government there are not policies to ensure that employees have things like paid time off and things like that. All of that is done at the negotiation table between employer and employee. So you as an employee need to be ready to be asking for these things. So some of the interesting things that we've seen, interesting trends in the last year or so with benefits and perks, is really around parental leave. maternity leave and paternity leave. I'm sure you've seen the headlines. Companies like Netflix announcing that they will give unlimited employee maternity paternity leave the first year after a child is born is unprecedented. No other company is giving a full year to new parents. We've seen other companies following suit, really upping the amount of paternal leave that they're giving. We see Mark Zuckerberg all over Facebook with his new baby. He took months off for paternity leave, months off from leading Facebook. So this is really a trend where, we're gonna expect to see more and more employers offering more and more time off for paternity and maternity leave.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's great that, it's kind of being reprioritized as something that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. One other interesting trend that I'll mention about some of the cool benefits we've been seeing is about really companies embracing what makes those companies unique within their benefits and perks. And what I mean by that is, for example, we've seen on Glassdoor benefits reviews that employees at Airbnb get an annual travel stipend of $2,000 to travel anywhere they want in the world. That is unique to Airbnb's culture, and that is a driver for employees to want to work there.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm like, that sounds great. You're essentially being paid to take leave and take a break. So, we're probably in 2016 going to see more companies really embracing what makes their culture unique through their benefits and perks.
Yeah, absolutely. So one other benefit or perk that I saw recently, it seemed to be very specific to possibly sort of the Silicon Valley area, was it looked like maybe fertility treatments or help with adoption and, other sorts of things related to kind of expanding your family. Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah, definitely. We famously saw Apple and other large tech companies offering help with egg freezing. This is something that's happened very recently, and really what it boils down to, all of these things that you're mentioning, is really the competition for talent, especially in Silicon Valley and these tech companies. They are fighting for every data scientist and software engineer that they can get, because these roles are really hard to fill. And so if they can bring in, add a benefit that might be attractive to the workforce, that gives them a leg up on the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's amazing. I mean, it's, especially for women who are sort of in the STEM fields, often they delay having having children. And so things like egg freezing, really becomes an issue for them at some point. And so to have a company that would be so supportive, I'm sure it would be really, really helpful.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, another interesting perk that came up recently was companies that are helping to pay off student loans for their employees. And I don't mean companies that reimburse you to go to school while you work there. I mean, you come to work there with some student loans and they help you to pay them off.
Yeah.
So that's
we have seen this.
Mm-hmm.
We have definitely seen this on Glassdoor. PwC is one company that's doing this. They're offering employees $1,200 per year for student loan debt reimbursement. So this is exactly what we're talking about. It is, people that have sunk into so much student loan debt, it's oftentimes debilitating. So PwC is saying, hey, if you come work here, we'll help you pay off your loans.
Mm-hmm. I think it's great. When I kind of looked into it, the amount that PwC is offering, the $1,200 per year, seemed to be a pretty average number for most of the companies that are offering it. So it's awesome if you can get it. If your company doesn't offer that, I would think when you negotiate for a new job, think maybe negotiate $1,200 higher or something,
Yeah, that's not a bad suggestion. When you're at the negotiation table, you need to take into consideration everything, all of your expenses that you have. Are you living in one of the most expensive cities in the country? Like that, what you pay in rent or in food prices, all matter, and things like student loan debt matters. If you're sitting on $100,000, your salary is going to be paying that, so you need to negotiate appropriately.
Absolutely. And as I speak with people, I've noticed younger people, especially like millennials, they tend to put more of an emphasis on things like quality of life. And it's not that pay is not important, but I think they have maybe a more well-rounded view of what's important to them. It sounds like a big driver for all of these extra perks is competing for talent. But do you think, like generationally, that there's some component playing in as well in terms of what's important to us?
I do. We actually recently did a survey that found almost 80% of people would take a new or additional benefit or perk instead of a pay raise. There's a lot of people, 80%. But when we broke that down by age, when we looked at millennials, that number went up to 90%, so 10 percentage points higher. So, yeah, more younger workers value benefits and perks much more than older generations in the workforce.
Yeah.
This maps back to quality of life. It maps back to, flexible work schedules, being able to, work from home when you want or need to, unlimited vacation, take time off when you need to. It's important to that workforce, and so employers, in order to hire that workforce, need to start paying attention to the benefits and perks that they're offering.
I totally agree. I think it's really interesting how much less a company could pay employees if they would give them these probably less expensive perks, that they value. So that's been a surprising, eye-opening experience for me to see, is how just generationally how we value different things so differently within the working world. Well, so one other trend that's really kind of changing is that people are starting to apply for jobs through their cell phones. And, it makes sense because sometimes you're applying at work and you want to keep things separated. Do you have any tips for us if we are applying for jobs on our phone?
Yeah, we are doing everything on our phone. So it's no surprise that we're not only searching more for jobs on our phone, but we're going to be applying for those jobs on our phone. And one of the things I will mention just about this topic is that this is a huge pain point right now in the employment industry. Glassdoor has integrated Apply within our, app. When you're searching for jobs on our app, you can oftentimes apply directly from that page on your phone. But a lot of it goes to how the employer ATS, which is applicant tracking system, is working. So some of them don't have mobile applies integrated, and so even if, we are trying to get you to apply on the phone because it's easier for you, it sometimes can't happen. And so in 2016, I imagine a lot of these employers and ATSs really taking this seriously because that's where job seekers are coming from. And so if you are trying to apply on your phone, some tips I recommend are, make sure that you upload your resume. Oftentimes, apps like Glassdoor allow you to keep your resume right on there, so you're not trying to, type in all your past work experience on your tiny phone. It's already there for you, and the fields pre-populate. So that's the first step, is getting your resume onto, Dropbox or Google Docs or whatever service you use, and just uploading it from there. And the other thing is just to keep things clear and concise. One of the things that I hear from our recruiting team and our heads of talent is to make sure that if you're going to write a cover letter, if you're writing, a resume and things like that, it's very clear. And these tips translate from mobile or desktop, wherever you are. Be clear, be concise, be straightforward, so that your resume doesn't end up at the bottom of the pile.
No, that's a great suggestion. Very, very good suggestion. And I totally agree. I think more and more people, like you said, they're applying on their phone. So those are some great tips. Well, another trend in 2016, which honestly has been kind of shocking at some point, is the record number of baby boomers that are retiring. And I actually saw a number that said something like, because of the sort of vacancies that will happen, about 25% was the number I saw, and I'm kind of hesitant to believe it, but 25% of millennials will actually be promoted into management positions this year because of all of the retirements. I'm curious, are you seeing any of this kind of data at Glassdoor about these baby boomers retiring? And, do you have any information about how it may affect younger workers?
Retirements are not something that we track in Glassdoor data, but I will tell you that, you're not wrong. There's going to be more and more baby boomers retiring in 2016 and beyond. This has been a trend that's been happening for the past few years. And so for the younger workforce, yes, you might be asked to step into a management role. But, this also, on the flip side of that, more baby boomers are going to be retiring, but also people are staying in their jobs longer. So actually, there's some of both happening. So baby boomers are also not able to retire as early as, the generation before them could. And so you will get probably some room for, younger workers will probably get some room for advancement and move up into management. And then on the other side, some will have a limited advancement because older generations are not retiring as early. So it's really a push and pull. We have both going on in the labor market right now.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time, especially with so many generations working together in one place.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mentioned when we got started, I interviewed Scott Dabrowski, your colleague at Glassdoor, in July of 2014, and we actually spent quite a bit of time during the interview talking about all the functionality within Glassdoor. And I know, especially because you are a technology company, that your website and your app are really changing all the time. Are there any features or functionality that we should be aware of that have really evolved in, say, like the last year?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I would love to tell you a little bit more about is our new job search experience. So this was launched very recently in January of 2016. As we talked about before, more people plan to search for a job in the new year, about 45% of people. And so what we really wanted to do was take feedback from our users and apply it to our job search experience. And what we were hearing from users is that searching for a job online, on Glassdoor or on other sites, is hard. It's clunky. It is frustrating. I don't know when the last time you looked for a job was, but it's not a great experience. You have to search through job listings, and they all open up in a new tab, a new window. You have to remember what you already looked at, go back, sift through the whole list again. And so we really took that to heart, and we launched a new job search experience, which kind of looks like an Outlook email window. So it has job listings on the left-hand side, and then a whole panel attached to each job listing when you click on it that integrates the job description and Glassdoor's company reviews and ratings and salary information. So you can find out each job what is expected of you, so the job description, and then what it's like to work at that company, what you might earn there, and what other employees on the inside of that company are saying. And so this really further integrates that research aspect that we talked about earlier with your job search. And we think it's better. We think it's a better experience. And we've heard that from our user base to date.
Oh, that's awesome. It's amazing to have all that data being pulled in one spot so that you can look at the job and make a decision quickly about whether or not you actually want to apply for it.
Yeah. So that's really the biggest thing that's happened that I think would really help your audience and your listeners, because I can guarantee lots of them are going to be looking for a job this year.
Yeah, right. Huge number. So for people who are listening, so one place that they can go to learn more about Glassdoor and look at all these great features is glassdoor.com. But also you have an app. And how do we find that app?
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to find. We are on iPhone and Android, so in Google Play Store, you can search for Glassdoor, as well as the Apple Store, and download from there. And we always love feedback on any of it, so we are here ready to hear more about what you think about our app and our features.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, MaryJo, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This has just been great. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Tune in next week for another edition of the Copeland Coaching Podcast. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher to ensure you never miss an episode.
Thank you for listening to the Copeland Coaching Podcast today with your host, Angela Copeland. Tune in next time to get more great tips on turning your job search into a slam dunk.